The morning of May 26 began like any other day for millions of Americans. Alarms buzzed across the country, coffee brewed in kitchens, and commuters filed onto highways and subways with earbuds in and phones glowing. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. But within minutes, the ordinary rhythm of life was disrupted by a headline so jarring, so unthinkable, that it seemed almost impossible to believe. Costco, the company that had been a household name for decades, was closing all of its U.S. stores. Not a handful of underperforming locations, not a gradual retreat from struggling markets, every single store across the nation. It was a sweeping, absolute decision that stunned both casual shoppers and die-hard members who prided themselves on the privilege of flashing their membership cards at the entrance. At first, disbelief reigned. On social media, the news spread like wildfire, each share or retweet adding fuel to a digital blaze of confusion. Is this real? People typed again and again, unwilling to accept what their screens were telling them. Others speculated it had to be some kind of hoax, a cruel prank, or perhaps a misinterpretation of an article. After all, Costco had been one of the most resilient retailers in modern history. It had weathered recessions, supply chain crises, and the rise of e-commerce without buckling. How could it be possible that the same company now planned to vanish from American soil in one sweeping gesture? Yet confirmation arrived swiftly. News anchors spoke with voices heavy with urgency, financial reporters scrambled to analyze, and Costco itself issued a statement that left little room for doubt. The language was formal, concise, and oddly cold for a company known for its warm connection to members. The U.S. stores would cease operations, effective May 26. Within hours, cameras captured images of bewildered shoppers standing outside Costco entrances, reading hastily taped notices, some snapping photos as if to preserve proof of the surreal moment. The shock was not limited to customers. Employees, many of whom had spent years or even decades working within Costco's warehouse walls, learned the news almost simultaneously with the public. Imagine clocking in for a normal shift only to discover that the very foundation of your livelihood was dissolving before your eyes. In cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Dallas, workers described the atmosphere inside warehouses as one of stunned silence. Cashiers stood at their registers, still scanning items, but their faces reflected a profound uncertainty. Stockers moved through aisles, mechanically arranging items, though their thoughts were elsewhere. How would they support their families now? What did the future hold? In places where Costco was more than just a store, the announcement carried the weight of a community earthquake. Consider a small town in Oregon where Costco served as both a major employer and a hub of activity. Residents didn't just shop there, they gathered there, saw familiar faces, exchanged conversations with workers they'd known for years. In such places, the idea of Costco shutting its doors was akin to closing a town square or demolishing a landmark. The grief was palpable. This was not merely an economic disruption. It was an emotional rupture. On forums and call-in radio shows, people poured out their feelings in raw, unfiltered tones. A retired couple in Arizona described how Costco trips had become their weekend ritual, a way to spend time together since their children moved out. A single mother in Michigan broke down describing how buying bulk allowed her to stretch every paycheck, and how losing Costco meant losing control over a fragile household budget. Stories like these poured in by the hour, painting a picture of collective heartbreak that statistics alone could never capture. Even as shock turned to grief, another emotion began to take hold: anger. Why had there been no warning? How could such a monumental decision drop overnight, without giving communities or workers time to prepare? Protesters gathered outside certain warehouses, holding hastily made signs and demanding answers. "We deserve the truth," one sign read. "Why now?" another asked. The sense of betrayal was deep because Costco had long cultivated trust and loyalty. For many, it wasn't just about closing stores, it was about shattering a bond. Speculation exploded. Television pundits debated possible causes, from sudden financial collapse to mysterious legal troubles. Economists weighed in, pointing out that Costco had shown no obvious signs of distress in its recent earnings reports. Online commentators, less restrained by caution, spun wild theories involving secret buyouts, shadowy government deals, or insider scandals. The uncertainty fed the frenzy, and the absence of immediate, detailed explanations only heightened public suspicion. Politicians, too, seized on the shockwave. In Washington, senators and representatives voiced concern over the thousands of jobs at stake. Some demanded hearings to uncover the real reasons behind the closure. Governors of states with major Costco warehouses called emergency meetings to assess the economic fallout. This was not simply a corporate announcement, it was a national event, one that touched households, local economies, and even the halls of power. But perhaps the most haunting element of this announcement was its timing. May 26 was not a random day. It came just before the start of summer, a season when families often turn to Costco for everything from grilling supplies to vacation gear. The symbolic impact was unmistakable. The closure was not just a business decision, it was the abrupt end of a tradition that had become woven into the fabric of American life. The timing itself became part of the mystery. As night fell on that day, America found itself unsettled. Households that had once taken Costco's presence for granted were left staring into an uncertain future. Employees went to bed wondering if they would wake to job offers or unemployment lines. Analysts worked late into the night trying to decode what had just happened. And ordinary people, perhaps more than anyone else, felt the weight of a new reality pressing down. The announcement had done more than close doors. It had opened a chasm of questions. What would happen to the millions of members who had paid fees in good faith? How would local communities recover from the economic shock? What ripple effects would this decision send through the broader retail industry? And, most importantly, what did this say about the stability of institutions that seemed, until that morning, unshakable? This was no ordinary piece of news. It was a moment of reckoning, a line drawn sharply across the timeline of American retail history. Before May 26, Costco was a trusted giant. After May 26, it was a symbol of uncertainty, a reminder that even the strongest foundations can crumble overnight. And as the nation processed the announcement, one thing became clear: the shock of this day would not fade quickly. It would linger, reshaping conversations, fueling debates, and setting the stage for a story that was far from over. To understand why the closure of Costco's U.S. stores sent such seismic shockwaves through society, we must step back and examine the legacy of the company itself. This isn't just the story of a retailer, it's the story of an institution that reshaped how Americans shopped, saved, and even socialized. Costco was not simply a warehouse filled with bulk goods. It was a cultural icon, a uniquely American invention that embodied both practicality and aspiration. And its rise to prominence is as important to this narrative as its sudden and shocking fall. The Costco story begins in 1983 in Seattle, Washington, when the first warehouse opened its doors. The idea seemed deceptively simple: provide goods in bulk at discounted prices, sell them in a no-frills environment, and require customers to purchase a membership to access these savings. At first glance, the concept appeared risky. Why would consumers pay for the privilege of shopping at a store that stripped away glamour and emphasized pallets of merchandise stacked high in cavernous spaces? Yet that gamble paid off with astonishing success. People didn't just come for bargains, they came for an experience unlike any other in retail. From its earliest years, Costco set itself apart by cultivating a sense of belonging. The membership card wasn't just a key to discounts, it was a badge of identity. Carrying that card meant you were part of a community that understood the value of bulk buying, quality products, and unbeatable deals. In a culture often divided by class, politics, or geography, Costco was one of the few places where families from all walks of life rubbed shoulders in the same wide aisles. A millionaire and a middle-class parent could both be seen loading jumbo packs of paper towels into their oversized carts, united by the same pursuit of value. The company's business model was revolutionary. Instead of marking up products significantly, Costco relied on modest profit margins and the steady stream of membership fees to sustain its operations. This approach created a unique dynamic. Costco wasn't simply selling goods, it was selling trust. Members knew that if an item was on Costco's shelves, it represented both quality and affordability. The sense of security this inspired cannot be overstated. It meant shoppers didn't have to second guess whether they were being taken advantage of, a rarity in the complex world of modern